Yeah, so I feel a bit of a fraud on several fronts really. I'm not directly involved with peat restoration. I'm Ruth's neighbour. I also work as a farm conservation advisor for the Yorkshire Dales National Park, and I farm with my partner beef and sheep enterprise in Wensleydale. So I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the type of challenges and opportunities that we're seeing in the Yorkshire Dales National Park, but really these could be, they're applicable to the rest of the north of England, if not further. So peatland habitats within the Yorkshire Dales National Park are scattered across the extent really. The orange areas are blanket bog and the blue areas are upland heath. And a lot of this area will be designated, so it's SSSI, SAC, and we've got the same constraints that you're going to see around the country. National park, but it's not nationally owned, so over 95% of the land is privately owned. We've got some big organisations like the National Trust owning about 5%, but the National Trust holding will be farmed. And then organisations like the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority actually only own less than 1%. So it is all privately owned, so any works on the ground is with landowners, with farmers. Typically a Dales farm it's a family farm, it's family run, and we're looking at 100 to 200 hectares of land, often with communal grazing on areas of blanket bog, heath, or they might have an enclosed fell or allotment ground, but pretty much every farm's going to have some peat in somewhere or other. And a lot of the farms are working on land or farming land, which is also being managed for grouse shooting. So peatland habitats are integral to the farming systems in the north of England. I'm just going to display some stats now. These come from DEFRA. Ruth alluded to them earlier, but farming is difficult. The yellow arrow, that's the hill upland farming. You know, farming is difficult. The livestock enterprise is being propped up by agri-environment, BPS, your basic payment scheme, which is pretty much dwindled to nothing this year, and to a smaller extent diversification. It's hard work. Farming is hard work. And I'm told that this was a good year as well when you read the report. So, you know, we're seeing both challenges and opportunities currently. You know, record livestock prices at the auction mart. That means, you know, selling, that's great if you're wanting to buy anything, it's a struggle. We're seeing high input costs. Most farmers in the uplands are pretty reliant on inputs like fuel, feed, fertiliser. We're seeing very changeable weather, drought to floods in weeks, days sometimes it seems. We've got government policy which swings. We've had the fiasco of the inheritance tax debate that really upset the apple cart. We've got trade deals undermining UK agriculture. We've got dwindling basic payment checks. We've got agri-environment schemes that aren't open. They will open next month. We've got an ageing population, and with age we've got all the other problems. And then we've got other people that are coming in on the horizon that are buying land, so, and also have got other ideas how to manage land. So we've got obviously the nature recovery, rewilding, carbon markets, etc., etc. So these could be seen as either opportunities or challenges, but it's what we're living with and what we're working with. So what do you think of when you think of the Yorkshire Dales and pretty much all of the northern uplands? It's sheep. In the Yorkshire Dales, it's sheep, barns and walls. That's what we are. That's why people come. And that's what they expect to see, to be honest. And historically, the northern fells, the peatland, has been managed with sheep. And historically, it's always been the traditional breeds. These are Swaledales here. These are our Swaledales. So Swaledales, Dalesbred, rough fell, those are the typical traditional breeds. But we've seen a massive reduction in the sheep population in the last 40 years. It's gone down, it keeps going down, and there's a big reduction in both sheep and cattle, so we're seeing a lot less livestock on the land. As a consequence, we're seeing less mixed stocking, and we're also seeing a shift from the traditional breeds to like heavier hill breeds and some lowland or continental breeds. You know, we're guilty of that. We've got them at home as well. And we're seeing a change in practices, you know, a shift in terms of lambing, a shift in terms of feeding and finishing lambs. We're becoming more reliant on inputs. We're seeing less away wintering. less wintering on the fell and more away wintering, but there's challenges in both of those as well. And we're seeing less hefting and shepherding on the fells as well. So the change in farming practice is being driven from a whole number of factors, some of which I talked about in my previous slide, but a lot of it is probably down to agri-environment schemes, and they've probably created the biggest shift in the farming practices that we're seeing. So in England, the schemes are under the Environmental Land Management banner, the ELM schemes. This is the English offer, and it is a major part of the farm income in the uplands, with the ethos of the schemes being public money for public goods. And I know I've got Natural England colleagues in the room, and it's a big challenge delivering these schemes, and I know higher tier is a big challenge. So we've got SFI sitting on the bottom, which is non-competitive and open to all, currently closed but will open next month. The schemes have been closed, SFI's been closed for over a year now, and that's a real big challenge for farmers and farm incomes when we've got schemes that aren't open and aren't available. We've got higher tier, which is delivered by Natural England, tends to be invitation only. And then we've got landscape recovery, which is really for those big ambitious projects working across several holdings. So I'm not going to go into depth about SFI. This is what my sort of bread and butter, going out onto farm and hand-holding farmers into SFI applications. So that's what I do day to day. So the 26 offer, which will open, I'm told in July, has changed. It's shifted its focus from previous iterations. We've got 63 options or actions available, of which there's about 12 that are sort of applicable to the uplands. Some of them have been removed for right or for wrong. And we've got options that are really focused on grazing on moorland. So these have become more outcome focused, but they are still very prescriptive. And these options are mirrored under the higher tier offer as well. So these sort of offers are there to generally to reduce and manage grazing. And the idea is that they will prevent expansion of bare ground, increase the surface roughness, reduce diffuse pollution, improve water quality, flood risk management, provide habitat and protect historic and archaeological features. So that's what the thinking is, public money for public goods, delivering on those sort of terms. Payments can be ramped up a small amount by stacking one option on top of another option, but this comes with challenges in itself. So we've got new options now to increase cattle and ponies on moorland, but those present challenges in terms of infrastructure, in terms of managing cattle, managing ponies on those habitats that we're not used to doing. So these are the sort of wider impacts we're seeing of farmers, landowners joining schemes. We're obviously going to see a change in the grazing generally. Generally we're looking at managing sheep grazing. Historically, that's what we've done on the fells. So we're managing the sheep grazing. But as a result of these changes that agri-environment are prescribing, the knock-on effects can be far wider than just on the moorland itself. So we are seeing a decline in the hefting ability of sheep. That's where sheep learn to stay on a specific area within the fell, in an unfenced area. We're seeing declines in shepherding, and that's being driven by a whole host of factors. And as a result, we're seeing potentially overgrazing in areas, undergrazing in areas, and possibly scrub encroachment. The introduction of cattle and ponies is hailed to be positive, but as I said, they require different infrastructure. We've got no fence collars, there's ways of managing them. There's technological advances, but there's still management, and you still need day to day, you need to be checking them, from animal health and welfare, which is, that is the basics. Reducing or changing the burning regime on the moorland can increase ranker grasses. That impacts on farming, in terms of agricultural value. And the changes or the encouragement of off-wintering, which is obviously something has been pressed recently, is in itself creating problems, and is becoming increasingly difficult to find. Off-wintering, where you're taking the stock off the fells and putting them on some lowland ground, is becoming a challenge. Historically, the sheep have been taken off the fells and have been put on dairy or lowland farms, but these farms are now looking at other income sources other than winter tack. They're looking at SFI and looking at other payment streams or restructuring their farms. And we're also seeing, as a result of taking the sheep off the fells, that the in-buy, so the rest of the farm, is really being pressed hard, and intensification through reseeding, drainage and fertilisation, and changes in the habitat on the lower ground as a knock-on effect. And the other big changes are things like changes to the sheep breed. The traditional hill breeds have always been very hardy, and they've been bred for a reason. By taking them off the felt, we're seeing changes to the hereditary, to the breed and what they are capable of withstanding. So alongside the agri-environment schemes, we've seen various reviews and projects over the last few years. We've had in 2025, Minette Batters produced her farming profitability review. And under that, there was a recommendation to restore a balance between food production and the environment. They should be treated as two sides of the same coin. And then this year, we've had the DEFRA commissioned upland review by Hilary Cottam. Alongside that, we've got some big projects. We were involved with the Foundation for Common Land. It was the 4-year HLF project, which was designed to be a focus for concerted and collaborative action on various pieces of common land across England, and with the idea of promoting stakeholders working together to produce a better end result. So we've got all this going on alongside day-to-day farming and finding your way through the agri-environment schemes. So these are just a couple of insights from the very recent DEFRA commissioned Hilary Cottam review. And there is nothing groundbreaking in this report. Basically, she and her team went out round England and interviewed farmers and people in the community, and these are the responses that she's got. And it basically is just reaffirming what we know and what we understand. What we're seeing is initiatives and interventions, technical data and expertise, and really a top-down approach, and that's sort of where we are in terms of, or where it appears to be as a farmer, as the approach for land management, with very little from the ground upwards. It really does seem a big power imbalance. So these are real farmer and community voices, and I know when I speak to farmers when I'm out and about, they do feel that they're often used as a scapegoat for global problems that they can't possibly change on their own holding, on their 100-hectare holding. And that really is where I'm going to finish now, and I will now hand over. But yeah, I think we do need to start shifting that power imbalance, having those discussions, and sitting down at a table and talking and finding a way forward.